Gopijana Ballava Girivardhari Gopijana Ballava Girivardhari Yashodanandana Rajajanandana Yashodanandana Rajajanandana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Tira Manachari Hare Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Ballava Giridhari Gopijana Ballava Giridhari Yashodanandana Brajajanandana Yashodanandana Brajajanandana Tira Vachadi Tira Vachadi Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribhajikacharya Ashtottara Satasi Siman A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Si Kahosi Krishna Chaitanya Bhuritananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Murmai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glory to the assembled devotees. Praise to the assembled. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gorpaminandi Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 18, Parikshit cursed by a Brahmin boy, text 20. Etavata alam nanu suchitena gunai amya hitva itaran prartayataha viputihi yasya angri renum jushute etavalam nanusuchitena Gunar samyana shisha yasya Idvaitan pratayata vibhuti Yasyang vivenam jishite nabipsaho Ena Gunara samya natishayanasya Hidaitan patayato vibhuti Yasyang vivenum jite nabipso Suchitena Gunara samya natishayanasya Vibhuti
Suchitena Guner asya Hitvetaran prartayato vibhutir Yasyang grirenum jusatena bipsaho
Etavatam nanusut naiditena gunar asam yanashitayanasya Yadvetaran prartayato vibhutir Yasyang grirenum jashate navipso
Etavatalam nanu suchitena Gunairasamyana natishayanasya Hitvetaran prartayato vibudhir Yashangri renam jusato nabhipso
Etavatalam nanusuchitena Gunaira samya nasitasya nasya Hitvetaram prayatato vibhutir Yasya nagrirenum chushate nabhipsaho
Etavatalam nanusutitena Gunarasamyanatishayanasya Itvetaram
Etavatalam nanusuchitena Gune ashamya natishayanasya Hitvetaram pratayato vibhutir Yashangrivenum jushate nabhupshaho
Etavatalam nanusuchitena Gunarasamya natishayanasya Itvetaran prartayato vibhutir Yasyangri renum jusate nabipsaho
Etavatalam nanusuchitena Guner asamyanatishayanasya Idvetaran prartayato vibhutir Yasyangri renum jushate nabipso
Etavatalam nanusuchitena Gunarasamya natishayanasya Hitvetaran prartayato vibhutir Yasyangri renum jushate nabipsoho
Etavatam nanu suchitena Gunar asam myana dishyayanasya Itvetaram प्रार्थायतो विभूतिर् यस्याङ्घ्रिरेणुं युषते न भूप्सः
Etavalam nanusuchitena gunarasamyat yashyananyasya Idvetaran parthayato vibhutir Yasyangrirenum jasutena bhipshu
Ladies,
Etavatalam nanusoshitena Guner asamyana siddhaya nasya Ivecha pratayato vibhutir Yasyangrirenum jatana vibhusa
Ivetatalam nanusochitena Gunarasamyanatisanasya Ivetaram prartayato vibhutir Yasyangrirenum jasate nabiso
Itavatalam nanu suchitena Guna asmayanti sayanasya Hitvetaran pratyayato vibhutir Yashangri rinum jushate nabishso
Jashate bipso Etavatalam nanusuchitena Gunairasamyanatishayanasya Hitvetaran pradhayato vibhutir Vetaran pradhayato vibhutir Yasyangrirenum jushate nabipso
Etavatalam nanusuchitenam Gunarasamyanatishayanasya Hitvetaram prartayato vibhutir Yasyangrirenum jushate nabipso
Etavatalam nanusuchitena Gunarasamyanatishayanasya Hitvetaram prartayato vibhuti Yasyangrirenum Jushatena Bipsoha.
Etavata. So far. Alam. Unnecessary. Nanu. If at all. Suchitena. By description. Gunai. By attributes. Asamya. Immeasurable. Anatishayanasya. Of one who is unexcelled. Yitva. Leaving. Itaran. Leaving aside, Hitva. Leaving aside. Itaran. Others. Prartayataha. Of those who ask for. Vibhutihi. Favor of the goddess of fortune. Yasya. One whose. Angri. Feet. Renum. Dust. Jushate. Serves. Anabip Saho. Of one who is unwilling. Translation. It is now ascertained that he, the personality of Godhead, is unlimited and there is none equal to him. Consequently, no one can speak of him adequately. Great demigods cannot obtain the favor of the goddess of fortune even by prayers. But this very goddess renders service unto the Lord, although he is unwilling to have such service. Purport.
The personality of Godhead, or the Parameshvara Parabrahman, according to the Shrutis, has nothing to do. He has no equal, nor does anyone excel him. He has unlimited potencies, and his every action is carried out systematically in his natural and perfect ways. Thus the Supreme Personality of Godhead is full in himself, and he has nothing to accept from anyone else, including the great demigods like Brahma. Others ask for the favor of the goddess of fortune, and despite such prayers, she declines to award such favors. But still, she renders service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he has nothing to accept from her. The Personality of Godhead, in his Garbhodakashayi Vishnu feature, begets Brahma, the first created person in the material world, from his lotus navel stem, and not in the womb of the goddess of fortune, who is eternally engaged in his service. These are some of the instances of his complete independence and perfection. That he has nothing to do does not mean that he is impersonal. He is transcendentally so full of inconceivable potencies that simply by his willing, everything is done without physical or personal endeavor. He is called, therefore, Yogeshvara, or the Lord of all mystic powers.
He's completely independent, Swarat. He's not dependent on anyone else for anything. Even to produce a child, he proved that. A man may be very wealthy and very powerful, but he needs a woman to give him an offspring. But Lord Krishna does not. And he proved this in his feature as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Garbhodakashayi Vishnu is an expansion of an expansion of Krishna. So it's in the category of Vishnu, Vishnu Tattva, Godhead. So when he comes to this universe, the Vedas say that the universe is empty. There's nothing. And he fills up half the universe with his own perspiration. He lies down in that ocean, fills half the universe. And he lies down on the Garbadak ocean, but on top of, reclining on Ananta Shesha. Ananta means unlimited. This is the form of Balaram. Balaram is the first expansion of Krishna, and he accepts different features in order to perform service for the Lord. So he's also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not also in the sense that there are more than one, but that he is an expansion of Krishna for the pleasure of Krishna and for other functions. So in this feature as Ananta Shesha, he comes as a wonderful snake, not an ordinary snake. He has thousands of hoods, and they're all beautifully arranged with jewels. And his coiling, snakes have their coiling bodies, that he arranges as a lounge for the Lord to lie on. So the Lord relaxes on the lounge of Sheshanaga. Sheshanaga is there to protect. He's also very powerful. And the Lord lies down in that posture, and the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, she's engaged, massaging his lotus feet. And he produces from his navel a lotus flower. Stem comes from his navel directly. No input with Lakshmi. And on top of that lotus flower, lotus stem goes up to the top part of the universe. He's lying in the middle, the stem goes up near the top. And on that top, a beautiful lotus flower, golden lotus flower, sprouts, and in the middle, Brahma takes his birth, first created being in the universe. This is someone asks you what our idea of creation is, you can explain this to them. Even if he's a scientist, you can explain this to him. And they'll say, no, we don't believe in that. We believe that everything came from nothing. So at least we have something that makes some sense. It's tangible. It's amazing for us to imagine, but you wouldn't expect the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be just like an ordinary person and do things just like everyone else. Otherwise, what's the difference between him and us? If he has all the limitations that we do, then how could he be the Supreme? You could say, people like to say, well, you say Krishna is God, so where did he come from? Who begot him? Who's the source of God? And the answer is, he has no source. He is the origin. He's the Adi Purusha, the original person. And this is confirmed by Lord Brahma. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That he's the original person, and he has no cause. Sarva karana karanam. He's the cause of all causes. He has no cause. He's independent. And that's one of the things, everything about Krishna is extraordinary and unlimited. His beauty is unlimited. His strength is unlimited. His fame is unlimited. His renunciation. Goddess of Fortune, she supplies riches and wealth, and everyone seeks her favor, even demigods. They try to please her. But it's not easy to please her. She's called Chanchala. She's fickle. She doesn't always provide fortune, even for worshippers. But she's attracted to Krishna. And Krishna, he doesn't require her service. She's not required. But still, he accepts her service. And that's the case with all of us, all the living entities, although we're not on the level of the Goddess of Fortune. But the Lord doesn't need our service. Otherwise, then he would be dependent. He would not be complete. Om Purnamadak Purnamidam Purnam Purnam Udachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishate. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, so many perfect units emanate from him. Although so many units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. In other words, he's not diminished. He's the cause of everything, and everything comes from him, but he's not minimized. In the material world, if you have a container of water and you pour half of it out, then you have only half left. But Krishna, God, he's complete. Even if he expands himself or creates so many things from himself, he's still complete, not diminished. He remains perfectly complete. We have this characteristic to a small degree. If we produce a child, then although the child comes from us, we still remain an individual person. We're not diminished in that sense, our individuality or our nature. But still, there is some change in us, so we cannot claim to be completely like the Supreme Lord in that regard. So, this verse is glorifying, is preparing to glorify the Supreme Lord. This is the beginning of glorification. We have to know something about God. We should want to know. It's the nature of the soul to learn this. If we're not interested in hearing about God, then we'll have to be interested in hearing hearing about the glories of some mundane person. Because it's our nature to hear about others and to glorify. We're not inert, dull stones every soul. Even in lower species, they also have their way of expressing themselves. They have their language. This is confirmed in the Nectar of Devotion. Krishna was speaking to living entities in different species and forms. He knew the languages. If you know the language, you can speak to them. They also speak. And everybody has so many things to talk about. The birds in the morning, they get up, they say, where am I going to go today? I'm going to go here. Where's food? They talk. And they go. And the humans also do the same thing. But everyone is forgetful of God, Krishna. And by forgetting Him, then we're missing out on the most important thing in our life. Because our life is meant, our existence is meant to serve Him. Jiver Soyup Hoy Vichara Krishna Das. We are by nature eternal servants of Krishna. That's who we are. That's what we are. We're not these bodies. These bodies that we have now are temporary. We get these bodies because of our material desires. Because we have so many material desires, we're forced to accept one material body after another. And then we try in that particular body to fulfill our desires, and we're never satisfied, and we still want more. We still think that there's something wonderful about this material world that we can control and enjoy, and we're frustrated. Everyone is frustrated. But when one realizes, the reason I'm frustrated, and everyone is frustrated, is because we're not doing what we're supposed to do. We're not fulfilling our nature. The nature of the soul is to love and serve Krishna. And if we disagree, and if we refuse to accept that, then Krishna is so renounced, although he has the power to force everyone. He does not force, and he lets us try to fulfill our dreams in the material, but in the material world, not in the spiritual world. He doesn't want them just making a mess of the spiritual world, because that makes a mess. When someone tries to be the Lord, imitate, and exploit others, and all the things that go on in the material world, then that's disturbing to his atmosphere. So he makes a place for them, the material world. And it's a very elaborate place, and as we all know, there's so many things going on. Dr. Damodar was speaking last night at UMKC about how some scientists say that the universe comes from a Big Bang, which comes from the void, and everything happens accidentally, and then it becomes. But it sounds like an interesting theory. Everything comes from nothing. But if we look a little deeper, a little closer into the workings of the universe, we find that it's not chance. Nothing's chance. Even give the example of a single protein. To produce a single protein, what are the chances of that happening without any control of anyone else, just by accident? How many times would one have to try to do it. You know what I'm trying to. Give him a microphone.
Trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions, one in a,
Attempts.
attempts.
One over that many.
Yes,
For just a little protein, which is a very insignificant part of a cell.
yes. The amount of attempts that it will take, the universe hasn't been existing that long.
Yeah. So nothing seems to suggest that it's happening, everything happened by accident. And how many proteins are there in a cell? How many cells are there in the body of one living creature? What to speak of the whole universe? What to speak of? So therefore, the real scientists, they come to a different conclusion. Einstein he was voted the man of the century. So even by the materialists, they recognize that Einstein was brilliant. And his greatest understanding was that from studying the complexity and the sheer brilliance of the universe, how everything works, suggests there must be an intelligent being. That's as far as he could go, because he was perhaps an impersonalist. He didn't have full knowledge, but by using his great intellect, he could see there must be some intelligent God. And other great scientists, philosophers. If one doesn't come to this conclusion, then he's not a great philosopher. But they don't know how great. And if impersonalists don't care to know, that's their misfortune. That's because they're envious. They want to become one with God. Instead of serving God, they want to be equal. That's not possible. The living entities are equal in the sense that they are eternal and they're eternally individual living entities. And so in quality, they have some characteristics, most of the characteristics. They have some beauty, they have some power, they have some intelligence, some knowledge. But they cannot say, they cannot compare to him, because he has unlimited knowledge. All knowledge comes from him. All beauty comes from him. There's no competition. Asamordva. No one is equal to him, no one is greater than him. No one can compete. That is understood through Vedic knowledge, and we accept authorized scriptures that follow the Vedas. In other words, the Bible also teaches that God is the source of everything, is it not? He's the supreme creator. He's the original person, is it not? So this is correct. Therefore, we accept this as Vedic knowledge also being handed down. So anyone who teaches the same thing as the Lord, then he's acting as in his capacity correctly. He can be taken as guru. The teacher is one who teaches what the original teacher. Lord Krishna is the original teacher because he's the original everything. He knows everything. He gives this knowledge to Brahma, Tene Brahmavida, within his heart, and Brahma becomes educated and he becomes the first Brahmin in the line of so many others, disciplic succession. Well, this is real education. to say, perhaps it was like this. If it's not even possible to produce a protein from material sources by the scientists, then how can they establish that everything is created by chance? There's no experiment has proven this. But we see life comes from life. A chicken hen lays eggs. So, but those eggs, they come from a chicken. They don't just come. So they say, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin. So that's an answer to the question. Person comes first. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that he is the Brahman effulgence, or the supreme. You could say Brahman means, one of the meanings is everything. It's like this material manifestation is Brahman the greatest, but it comes from him. That's his energy. It's not that the hen or the living being first comes from matter. And comes from the person, the living force. And he can produce matter also, and he does. Bhumira ponalo vayu kamano badhirayacha hankarai tiyame bina prakrtirastata. These are his 8 separated material energies. Earth, water, fire, air, that comes from him also. And then the 9th one, he describes in the next verse, is the Jiva soul, the Jiva living entity, but he's superior. The soul is superior to matter, don't matter. But it's another energy. So no one knows this, that the soul is a different energy. It's not material. You try to find it with your telescope or microscope, different instruments. You won't be able to find the soul because it's a different energy. It's on a spiritual level. You won't be able to find it with material instruments or the material mind or the material intelligence. It can only be perceived only by devotional service, only by the spiritual process. Is the Lord then pleased to award this transcendental knowledge to the living entity? Otherwise, he can go on speculating for millions of lifetimes, millions of years. He won't understand. But if he hears submissively from the Lord explains, I'm the source of everything. Both material and spiritual, everything comes from me. I have my supreme abode, spiritual, it's never unmanifest, it's always existing. And he lives there eternally with his associates. And we're also originally associates of Krishna. But now we've left to try to find our own kingdom to become God. And when we become frustrated enough, or fortunate by causeless mercy, we come in contact with Krishna through the spiritual master who was sent by Krishna as his representative to bring back the forgotten souls, the lost souls, to the abode of the Lord. Any questions?
In the Hare Krishna, in the last part of the text, it said that there's an unwillingness to accept, although he is unwilling to have such service. I don't quite understand how.
It means he doesn't need it. He accepts it as he likes, but he's not required, he's not dependent. It's like we sing, Brahma sings, that he's living in his own abode, Goloka. He has hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune, Lakshmis, serving him. But he's not in need of that. But he accepts that as loving relationship. So this is the unique thing about God. Service to God is not the same as service to a poor person. If we give charity to a poor person, that's something, because he's lacking something, and we're giving him something he's lacking. But Krishna doesn't require, he's not lacking anything. He has everything. Everything is part of him. So what can you give him that he doesn't have? And you can't feel, if you give charity to God, you can't say, I did some good work today, I gave charity to God, poor God. He was looking a bit thin, so I gave him a little spending money for. No, that is seva. Serving God is seva, service superior. Not that you render charity or something to inferior, that's not God. So in this, that's the idea. Otherwise, he wouldn't be complete in renunciation. If he was dependent on the goddess of fortune or anyone for anything, for satisfying himself. Still, having understood that, then this is why the pastimes of the Lord are difficult to understand. They're not material. Because we don't have any experience of anyone who's completely self-satisfied. Materially, it doesn't work because everyone's dependent on something else for their pleasure. But Krishna is unlimitedly pleased. Still, out of his causeless mercy, he appears to need things. He appears to need a mother. When he comes in the material world, he accepts Devaki and Yashoda as mothers. He doesn't need a mother. He's the source of all living entities. The mother is generally before the son or the child, but not in this case, Krishna's. But he does this for pastimes, for his enjoyment. And this is why those who are not engaged in devotional service, they find it very difficult to understand. It's impossible to understand the Lord through speculation or through logic or through argument or experiment. Only he can be understood by devotional service. Then he reveals himself.
Yes, Maharaj. When Brahma was created by the Purusha, we understood from Srimad Bhagavatam that he was climbing down the lotus stem in a matter of confusion. So could you explain to us why is a learned man, even such as Brahma, is confused about his duties and his responsibilities in life?
Yeah, because everyone is dependent on Krishna. This is a good example. Nobody could be more qualified than Brahma. He's the most intelligent person, the first person created in the universe. has immense potency. Ultimately, he ends up engineering the whole universe, but only with the knowledge that he got from Krishna, and he recognizes it. He admits it, that I'm empowered by Vishnu. People say, for example, Narada Muni, his son, was once asking, you seem to be the supreme, because Brahma is so powerful. He creates a universe, like a spider creates a web, and he pulls it within himself. So Brahma seemed very powerful. But Narada Muni said, but I see you're also worshiping someone. And then Brahma said, yes, I'm not independent. I don't have any independent power. I don't have any independent intelligence. It's all coming from Vishnu, Krishna. So that's proof of that. That he tried to go down the stem of the lotus or to find out the source of his existence, and he was unsuccessful. He couldn't understand. Then Krishna gave a little hint, tapa. Now you should perform austerity. That was his devotional service. That was the order of his guru, Supreme Lord, to perform austerities. We still also have instructions from Lord to perform some austerities, and everyone should do that. In devotional service, such austerities are there, some restraints from some regulations. So this is required. Even in beginning aspects of yoga, yam, niyam, there's instructions, things that one should do, things one shouldn't do, in order to get the full benefit of, in order to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yoga means to link with God, to get out of the material realm and get on the spiritual realm. Some other, yes.
Maharaj, one argument I hear is that from impersonalists or Mayavadis, how can a person means limited in a sense, have infinite powers?
How can
a person who is a limited form?
Who is what? Form.
Yeah, limited form and shape.
That's inconceivable to you. Because you're thinking that you're thinking of forms that you have experience with. You don't have experience of a form that can be unlimited and still be the source of everything. Because you're thinking materially that the sky is bigger than any form we've ever seen. And therefore the sky is impersonal, almost nothingness, not quite nothingness. Space is even more subtle than sky. So you're thinking that must be bigger than the forms because that's your experience. But that's the drawbacks of your intelligence. Krishna is that form, that inconceivable form that produces all energies, including space. We say space holds everything, but where does space come from? It comes from Krishna. Oh, what part of Krishna? How could space or earth or all, how could come from a person that has arms and legs and hair, fingers? How could a person, and he's not even that big. If you see paintings of Krishna, he's medium size. How could such a person be the source of unlimited space, unlimited? That's inconceivable. That you'll be able to understand to some degree if you surrender to Krishna. Then he'll reveal that. It's like Brahma. Brahma wanted to test Krishna. When Krishna appeared as little child in Vrindavan. So he tried to show his own mystic power. Brahma's a great mystic, great yogi. He can create things. He can appear, disappear. He can manifest universe. He can manifest living beings from his mind. He creates the 10 mental suns. He creates so many different living species, 8,400,000. But Krishna is the supreme. And therefore, Krishna defeated him very easily by his mystic power. Therefore, Prabhupada ends this purport by saying, he is the Yogeshvara, the master of all mystic power. So, we won't be able to understand him. You can go on trying to speculate for millions of lifetimes. You won't be able to understand how there's a person like that. But it should be, when one is engaged in devotional service, it makes perfect sense. It becomes completely logical and understandable. That's his mystic power. That's his unlimited potency. Okay, yeah, question.
I have two questions, more like technical. That when Balarama is like first expansion of Krishna, and from him comes all the others expansion and Vishnu Tattvas and like this. So or even the super soul is like the expansion of Balarama. So how we should like relate to the super soul or to the different Vishnu Tattvas, like to Balaram or to Krishna?
As you wish. They're both. Balaram's also Yogeshwar and Parabrahman. Yeah. So.
And the second is the
you can say Balaram's the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. They're different features of the same person. It's like if a man, let's say he's the president of a country. So he has one dress. When he dresses like that, he wears certain clothing. He stays in a certain place. But in addition to that, he's also a father, and he dresses in a different way when he goes out for an excursion with his children. And they call him Dad, and someone else calls him Mr. President. And the wife, she calls him Sweetheart, if they have a nice, happy marriage. So he has different relationships. He's seen differently by different people, but he's the same person. Sometimes he may dress up as Santa Claus for giving pleasure to his children. So he has so many different dresses, but he's the same person. A person who's intelligent knows that, this is that person there that looks like Santa Claus, that's your father, tells the child. My father? How could that be my father? He doesn't have a beard. He can't see all this, child. But one who has transcendental knowledge can see that there's one person, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam, unlimited forms, but they're all one. And they're the Supreme Personality of God. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.